Hey, Matt.
Hi.
Welcome. You finally made it.
I did.
You've been making it for 3 years.
Yep.
Welcome to My Black Self, the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining. So I got a sensitive microphone. It doesn't like me to be too loud.
Oh, so am I too loud? I might be.
We both were too loud.
I'm a loud talker, so
I may have to move this thing over a bit. Hold on now.
like the other side of the room.
I may have to move it in front of us, but it's fine. All right, y'all. Today's episode is titled Goodbye versus No Goodbyes. And you've had goodbyes.
I have.
And I've had no goodbyes.
I've also had no goodbyes.
So, how you doing, first of all?
I'm good. You know, I mean, January was 2 years since my grandmother had passed, which you had referenced her in in one of your latest episodes.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's tough because it comes around, you know, so, yeah. But, and then March, it'll be a couple years for my father's parents who passed away. They actually passed away 3 years and 3 days apart from each other. Yeah.
Is that what you're about to tell me a minute ago?
I was, yeah.
Well, tell me that story, because
okay.
he was about to tell me a story, y'all.
So, first of all, my grandfather, my father's dad, let me quickly go into this. My father's parents, I always called them grandma and grandpa. Mm-hmm. My mother's parents, I always called them gram and gramp. So if I refer to that this way, people know who I'm talking about. So my grandpa, he was sick with cancer and stubborn old man, like in life, he just refused to die. I know that sounds bad, but it's really what it was. Yeah. So when he finally, it was getting close to my parents' anniversary, which is March 25th. And my mom's like, he's going to die on our anniversary. And your father's never going to want to celebrate it again. And da-da-da. And sure enough, I was leaving work on March 25th. I forget the year. My phone's ringing as I'm literally punching out. And my mother's like, your grandfather died. I was like, great. Okay. Yeah. Long story short, I wasn't that close to them. I mean, we can get into that later if you want. But so then literally 3 years and 3 days later, March 28th, my father's mother passed away. And they were married for 65 years, I think it was. And I remember my father's sisters, I don't call them my aunts because I don't think of them that way. Yeah. I remember my father's sisters and their kids all saying, oh, wouldn't it be something? They loved each other so much. And if they died on this 3 years apart on the same day. And I just remember my grandmother always, after my grandfather passing away, saying how much she was glad he was gone. And so I was just like, yeah, that's not going to happen because she's not going to want to. She's not going to want to die on the same day with him. And it's bad enough she's going to be buried next to him for the rest of eternity. So, yeah, she held out for 3 more days. And if any of my family watches this, sorry, that's my opinion.
Well, let me tell you. So, I had a similar situation with my sister, my grandmother. I've told you this about my cousin Brittany, who was here on the last episode, talking about our siblings. When her sister died, and when her grandmother died the following year, I said to my Aunt Roz, I was like, the same thing doesn't happen. The same exact thing. I hope it doesn't happen. So then my sister dies, and then a year later, my grandmother dies, and we're sitting there looking at each other like, what the fuck? Yeah. Like, that shit is fucking intense. So, I got my questions, y'all. I remember when you called me, so I have on here, I remember when you called me and told me your grandmother passed, but I don't know if that was when she passed or was when you were telling me that she was going to pass.
I want to say, I now that you said that, because when I read your question that you sent me, I was like, I don't remember that. I think it was when I think I called you before because I was getting ready for work. I think it was like a Wednesday, and I was literally not to paint a picture, but I was literally stepping into the shower and my phone rang, and I just happened to look at it, and the thing came across that said Graham's life alert, and I was like, oh shit, you know, because I was one of the backup numbers. Yeah. And so I picked it up, and it was the person, and the person there was saying that, you know, your grandmother said, Kay Sandstrom, do you know this person? Or Catherine Sandstrom, do you know this person? I said, yes, that's my grandmother. And they're like, she set off a life alert, and she said, that she's vomiting blood. Should we call an ambulance? Because, I mean, and everyone, you would just think, yeah, call the ambulance, sorry, I can swear. Can I swear?
Definitely. We can swear. Okay.
That's the pre-K teacher in me. I was like, fuck yes, call the ambulance. If someone's vomiting blood.
However, I don't think we need to see the pre-K teacher swearing.
No. So I did. I said and they're like, can you get to her? I was like, I live 20 minutes away. I said, there is no way that I said the ambulance will get there faster. So he's like, okay, I'm going to send the ambulance. Of course, as soon as I got off the phone, I'm on trying to get in touch with my mother, because I'm like, they're, and I finally got, I think I finally got in touch with my brother, and he was like, yeah, she knows, she's getting dressed, she's heading over there. And I went to work because it was too late for me to call out. And so I went to work. I think I made it halfway through the day. But I think I called you and said, I think I called you the day later when they moved her to hospice, and told you that, why she was going to hospice.
Why she was going, yeah.
Yeah, because, so she was a nurse her entire life. And she had a bleeding ulcer. She was 97 years old. She had been in a car accident a few years later, had suffered some nerve damage, and then she ended up getting shingles, which in the same area of the nerve damage, and she just was in a lot of pain. My grandfather died a couple years before, which was the love of her life, and she just was not the person that that I knew her as, and so she knew what was going to happen if she refused the blood transfusions. Being a nurse, you know that stuff.
Yeah,
and they couldn't get the ulcer to stop bleeding. So she chose to go. And so I think that's when I called you, and I think that that is when I was upset, because I was just like, I couldn't believe that she would choose death over staying with her family.
Yeah.
But now that I look back on that,
it makes sense.
It does make sense, and it was kind of selfish on my part to think that way. But again, that's part of the grieving process, the loss, and so.
Yeah, feeling the blame and feeling bad for all of it. And then you have to realize that this person chose their life, and they chose to live it out and end it the way that, the way it was supposed to go. So you lost all four grandparents.
Yeah, I've lost, so I was consider myself to be very lucky. My last great grandparent that died, she died 5 days before my 18th birthday. So I got to know her pretty well because she was living with my grandparents towards the end of her life. So that's, I remember getting ready to go to the funeral and telling people, oh, I have my great grandmother's funeral.
Yeah.
I have to go to, and they're like, your great grandmother? I was like, yeah. I was like, yeah, she was 89 years old when she died. And she had 9 children, something like 25 grandchildren, 46 great-grandchildren, and 6 great-great-grandchildren when she died. Yeah, it was my father's side of the family is a huge family. And so, because of that, there's a lot of like great uncles and aunts that I had lost, and but I if I passed by them on the street while they were still alive, I probably wouldn't even known who they were, because that's how big the family is. So
I feel like both of my grandfathers died when I was a kid, but like my grandmother, the one who recently passed, well, the only one who's passed as of yet, her husband, I remember he died in the house. But I remember being able to say goodbye to him, but I was a child, so I don't remember much. Like, all I remember is him teaching me how to draw stuff, then that's it. And then my grandmother, who was here in Connecticut, who's still living, I believe he had cancer. I remember saying goodbye to him in, like, hospice, but also, like, I don't remember that much because I was still a child, so.
Yeah. I think the first time that I remember losing somebody that I knew, that I would see, like, on a regular basis, was my mother's uncle. I think I was in elementary school. And so I obviously I didn't know, what death was, or really, I didn't have an understanding like we do as adults now and stuff. But I do remember being told that, he died, and it wasn't until like my early 20s that I found out how he died.
It's crazy when how you find things out.
That was kind of a shock to me because I was always told that he just got sick. And I remember being in the house afterwards, like when we were cleaning out the house, and seeing like all these pills on his bed and stuff. So I just assumed that he just died from being sick. He took his own life.
Oh shit.
Yeah. He took his own life because my grandp was sick in the hospital, and they thought that my grandpa wasn't going to make it, and so that was his brother, and he didn't want to be left alone. And then 2 days after my uncle, we used to call him Uncle, his name was Uncle Lester, but 2 days after Uncle died, my grandfather turned around.
Yeah. Oh my God! So then
my grandfather ended up being alone. Yeah, but my grandfather never saw it that way because my grandfather said, you know, a lot of people will, you know, when they say, you talk about their family, they think about, you know, some people are still stuck in that my mother, my father, my siblings, those are my family.
Yeah.
You know, like kind of like my dad. But then my grandfather, my grandp, his family, that was his wife, my mother and his son, which was my uncle, and us, that's his family, you know, so he didn't see it as him being alone. He had his family. Yeah. And then after that, it wasn't, like I said, my 18th birthday, my great-grandmother. And then my mother's brother died unexpectedly when I was in my 20s. That was from a heart attack.
Oh, damn.
Yeah. Then it started, then my grandparents, it was like 2012, I think, when my grandpa died. And then my grandpa died. And then my grandma died, and then Graham died. So it was my mother's father, my father's parents, and then my mother's mother. And I was, that was 2 years ago I said that? So I was 40 years old when I lost my last grandmother. I do say that I've said this before to you, I think, that I consider myself lucky because I've got to know especially my mother's parents, who I've been very close with. I got to know them as a child. I got to know them as a, you know, teenager, and then I got to know them as an adult, you know, and who can say that, you know, like my experience, you know, it changed over the years with them. And
yeah, I think that's really cool. So how does it feel to be able, because I know there's some people you haven't been able to say goodbye to, but like for me, I wasn't able to say goodbye to the last two people who passed away.
Yeah.
They both died suddenly, and like I told you, my two grandfathers I was able to say goodbye, but I don't remember that. That was a kid goodbye.
Yeah.
So I don't remember that. So how does it feel to be able to say goodbye to the people that you know are leaving this land?
So I knew that my father's parents were going, because it was like, you know, my grandfather. They both chose to die at home. However, my grandmother, when she died, they had sold her house and she was living with one of my father's sisters. And I think there must have been, when my grandmother was going, I think there must have been like 3 or 4 days. Like I kept asking Patrick if I could leave early because she's gone, and then she wouldn't go. I'd get there and she'd be fine. And so I like, finally I was just like, you know what, just call me when she's gone. Like I can't keep leaving work, you know? And my grandfather, the same with my grandfather, like I chose not to be around when they were going.
Mm-hmm.
And that all stems from my lack of relationship with them because, as you know, I'm an out gay man. And my father's family had a problem with that. Yeah. And to the point where my grandmother, like we'd be at family events and the guy I was dating would be with me, and my grandmother would like look at me in front of him and say, when are you going to settle down and find a nice young girl to get married? And you know, she used to do it one time finally a cousin of mine was like, Graham, he's not going to get married. He's gonna, you know, he's gay. Like it's not going to happen. Gay. He's gonna, you know, and she knew because there was a time that she called and tried to apologize for it. And it was just like, yeah, she was just being manipulative and trying to get to my dad through me. Long story. But so I chose not to be around them. Like in my mid-20s, I stopped going around. Mm-hmm. I'd go every once in a while just to basically shut my dad up because he'd be like, "Oh, your
Shut
grandmother."
face.
Yeah, he'd be like, "Your grandmother wants to see you. Your grandmother or your grandfather are asking for you."
My
And
dad
I'm like,
does that.
yeah, but I'm like, you know what? They have, like, I know they have my phone number because my grandmother used to have everybody's phone number right by the phone, you know, right by the
Isn't
phone
that
written
odd
down.
that your family can be sitting around
yeah,
folks and say such and such wants to see you, but they won't call you when they're...
Well, my dad does the same thing, and I tell him all the time. I'm like, you have a phone. I said, you know, I know it's in your cell phone because you call me once in a, when you do call me once in a while, it shows up Dad's cell phone. I said, so you want to talk to me? You know, you call me anytime.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, it's just the way his family is. But yeah, I chose not to be there because I just couldn't be around people that didn't respect me. And
I think that's fair.
You know,
Yeah.
So I didn't get to say goodbye to them. And I think that as their funerals were happening, I was bawling my eyes out. And for the longest time, I couldn't understand why. Why was I so upset about these people that just did not care or did not really care or support or accept me for who I was? And it took me to going through therapy later, you know, years later, since that my therapist and I were talking about it, and he was like, did you ever think that maybe you were upset because of missed opportunities?
Yeah.
And you know, the more we talked about that, I really believe now that that's what it was, that I had seen how close, you know, my cousins were to them and stuff, and that I didn't have that with them because I chose to pull away. That level of toxicity or being toxic, you know, I guess that's the new thing people.
Yeah, toxicity. Yes.
Yeah. I just didn't want that in my life, you know. So I missed out on I think, you know, my therapist said that probably missed opportunities, and it's true, you know, because there were things that had happened, like graduating, like when I finally graduated college with you know, my bachelor's and my master's degree. They weren't there. No, they weren't there, you know, and my mother's parents were, though.
Yeah.
You know?
With that being said, with them not being here, with them passing along, what has changed about you?
I think it's made me realize how important family is, and no matter where you're at with like your siblings or something, that you need to make sure that they're, you know, that everything is good. Because I don't know where I heard this. Someone said to me that or not to me, but I heard it was a movie or a TV show, I don't know. They were saying in the thing that your family, your siblings are the ones that are going to be at your 70th birthday party, not your parents.
Not all of them, child.
I mean, no. So, well, I mean, yeah, okay. No, I get that. But like, you know,
but exactly.
In general, it makes sense because not even your friends, you know, that you have, you don't know they're going to be in your life at that point.
No idea.
You know, people come in and out of your life as friends. You know, they're there for a couple of years. They're, you know,
season.
Yeah, and so you don't know. You know, and it's true. It's like that's your family. You know, despite how, you know, they say blood is thicker than water, and just, you know, or that, you know, in the gay community we talk awfully, you know, a lot of times we talk about being able to choose our own family.
Yeah, yeah.
But push comes to shove, your family is your family. And, you know, growing up, I watched my father's family fight like cats and dogs. Yeah. Like at my grandmother's wake, the cops were called. I mean, because it was, you know, because the sisters were fighting, and it was like, you know, and that's like, I don't want that.
No.
Like, I don't want to be doing that with my brother and my sister at one of my parents' funerals or wake. Like, no way.
Absolutely,
you know?
not.
And so I that's what I took away from them passing, is that regardless of your shit that you go through or how angry you get at your brother and your sister, or, you know, you don't care for you might not care for the person they end up they're with.
Yes. Yes.
Well, you know,
somehow you still have to be around and accept it.
Yeah.
Because I've been through that, not liking the other person, not liking the person they with. And I'm like, oh God, I still got to show up.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, you know, and it's that, I think that's what I took away from my father's parents passing.
Yeah.
And so I try, you know, I really do try, despite my feelings of, you know, decisions that my brother and my sister make, or the people that they're with.
Yeah.
you know, they're my siblings.
You know, it's not funny that you say that, but you know, I still haven't seen my other grandmother yet. I have not gone to see her. I've been on grandparent strike. I've been on about to eventually die strike. I have not gone to see her at all. I mean, I know I need to now, but for a while I was like, oh, I'm not going to see her. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Because she's not, I don't know, I'm sure she's, you know, she's slowly going. Like she has certain issues. And she's not going to remember who I am. She doesn't know who I am.
No.
So I just feel like I just really don't want to deal with that. And it's really messed up.
Yeah. I mean, it's all on how you want to remember her, too.
Yeah, I don't want to remember her that way.
Yeah.
At all. No. I would rather just remember her how I remember her and let that be that. What is of your grandmother that recently passed, what's your favorite memory of her?
Jeez. There's so many. I remember, like, going on walks with them as a young child and we'd drop rocks down the rainstorm drains.
Yeah.
And she'd ask me, what sound is that? And I'd be like, kerplunk. I went away with them on vacation when I was 16. We went to Bar Harbor, Maine. Mm-hmm. Went up the mountain, took pictures of the, like, you know, who would want to, as a teenager, go away with your grandparents? But oh my God, I had so much fun. My favorite memories that I have is because she used to say this all the time. Their house, she had like this, they called it the breezeway. It was like a porch between the house and the garage. And it was enclosed. It was all, you know, the windows, you could open all the windows and it was all screened in and stuff, and you could close it off from the house. And we'd sit out there at night in the summers and there'd be like just a little light, you know, so it was kind of dark and stuff. And she'd be like, you know, we'd be there with my cousins and stuff, and she'd be like, oh, she goes, did you guys want to hear a ghost story? And we'd be like, yeah, you know, and she goes, oh, have you ever heard the story about the man with the golden arm? And we're like, no, what is it? And she's like, oh, she goes, you'll have to remind me, because sometimes, you'll have to remind me, sometime I'll tell you about this man. And then she goes, the man with the golden arm, you know. Never in my life. I don't even know what the hell that story is about. Never heard it in my life.
Something she made up.
Never heard it in my life. That was probably just it, just to scare us. Like, you know.
We're going to Google.
The man with the golden arm.
The man with the golden arm. But nowadays,
be careful.
Well, let's see what we find. Let's see what your grandmother was talking about. I think it's one of my memories that come to mind when I think about my grandmother. And we was living in Atlanta with the golden arm. And this was around the time when Puerto Rico lost power. And Atlanta lost power.
Okay.
My grandmother was living with my aunt. And The Man with the Golden Arm is a movie from 1955. We'll dig deeper into that. We got to see what this story is talking about. It's a whole controversy about it. Why was The Man with the Golden Arm controversial? All right. Okay. So my grandmother... I had went to go see her. I didn't have power at my house, but they had lost. I mean, I had power and they didn't, so I went to go visit just to say, hey, y'all all right? I got power. Y'all good? Yeah. And my grandmother was in that room. I might have made her breakfast. I don't remember, but she was eating. And she was like, you lost power? You and Melissa lost power? I was like, no, we got power. We fine. Now, this was like day 2 of them not having power. And she goes, we ain't got no power here. Why we lose power? She said, we may as well be in Puerto Rico. I said, Grandma, you cannot say that because Puerto Rico been without power for like 3 months. She said, we may as well be in Puerto Rico. Because we've been without power for 2 days. I said, that is not the same. No. That is not the same. That lady would say whatever the hell she wanted to say. Didn't matter.
I remember there was I don't know what year it was, but we were out. It was an ice storm had hit in like end of October, beginning of November, and I was at my house. I was without power for like 9 days, and then my brother and his wife lost power at their house in Cromwell. My grandparents lost power at their house in Middletown. My sister lost power, and they all ended up at my parents' house because my dad had gotten a generator and they had the wood stove and for heat because it was really cold. And they're like, come on over. And I was like, hell no. Like, but I heard good stories about that experience, but I chose to stay at home. because I had the 2 dogs at the time, and I just was not. And my nephew was afraid of dogs, and I wasn't gonna try. I wasn't trying to deal with that.
Stay home.
Like there was like what 10 people trying to use one bathroom. Yeah, no.
Too many people.
So, but yeah, no, that was. There's a lot of memories, like so a lot. Many. Yeah, it's just, and I'm so lucky and grateful to have them. Like my grandparents, they traveled a lot, you know, after they retired, and they documented their entire life with pictures. And now my sister lives in my grandmother's house. Okay, it's been 2 years since she's been there, and to this day we have not touched the pictures because they had them developed into the slides, and they were in those reels, and we used to sit and watch slideshows, and they would tell us all about where they went and stuff. And so there's it's like, I don't know how, like, I would say it's about, the shelf is like 15 feet long, and it takes up the top whole half of the shelf, and it's 2 rows of slides. Yeah. And like, we'd be sitting there watching these slides, and you'd look at the slide, and there's a picture of my grandmother sitting in a chair wearing a certain outfit with a lamp, and you'd look like this, because she'd always be sitting over here, and you're doing this. Because the lamp is in the same spot, the chair's in the same spot, and she's wearing the same outfit, but it's been 15 years.
That's insane.
Yeah.
I have a picture of my grandmother's father. He had to be like maybe 6'8", because that man looked huge. I'm going to show you when we're done with this, because he's a really large man. I'll put him at the end of the podcast just for shits and giggles. But I don't remember his name. Don't know that man's name. I think it was Cicero. So you got to say goodbye to your grandmother.
I did, yes. Because again, like, you know, she was a nurse, she knew. So when they moved her to hospice, she was still with it. Like, she was, you know.
She was alert.
She was alert. Yeah, she was alert. And so when I was able to go in, of course, this was in the middle of the pandemic, so nobody was actually supposed to go in. But
goddamn
pandemic, when you retire from the hospital that you're in as the assistant director of nursing, and your name still, people that work are still there that were there when you were there, and your name gets
let
pulled.
you in.
Yeah. So I was lucky enough to be let in. We got to go up for about a half hour at a time, one of us at a time. So I got a half hour with my grandmother all by myself. And you know, we talked first when I got there, just, you know, about stuff just before, you know, and then it was like, then it got deep. And, you know, she said to me, she said, I just want you to know that I'm proud of the man that you've become. And she goes, it's been an honor to get to watch you grow and change. And like, of course, you know, the waterworks started.
Yes.
Because to hear that. And then I got to tell her that I got to thank her, and I thanked her, and I thanked her. I said, you know, you and Gramp, because it was a huge part for being there for me, I remember when I went to go tell them that I was gay, I was so nervous, because even though that, you know, they accepted me and stuff, they were still on you know, they were that generation. My grandfather was in the war, and, you know, it's World War II, and you know, they were that generation, so they were a little bit more on the conservative side, but the fact that I was their grandson was first and foremost. And that day my grandmother told me, she's like, we learned to accept it because the only other choice was to not have you in our lives, and that's not acceptable. That's what she said to me. I thanked her and my grandfather for everything that they'd done for me. I thank them for being there for me. I thank them, you know, for doing the best that they could to help us become the people that we were, the man that I am, you know, and so when I went to go leave, I said to her, I said, Grandma, I'm going to miss you a lot. I said, but I know that I'm going to be okay. I said, because I know that, you know, that you gave me the skills to be okay. And, you know, and I'm not a very religious person. My family's not very religious. But, you know, I said to her, I said, because I know you're going to be watching. Yeah. You know, and And I said, I'm going to keep making you proud. And I kissed her. I said goodbye, and I walked out, bawled my eyes out.
Did she say goodbye?
She did.
She did.
Yep. And she was in hospice for a day and a half after that. So I never went back.
Yeah.
Because
I had gotten what
I wanted, and I didn't want my last memory of her to be suffering out of it, and on, doped up on morphine or whatever it was. And my brother and my sister chose to go back. I went after she had passed, to pay my respects, because she was going to be cremated. Because of COVID, there was no calling hours. There was no, it was a graveside funeral in the middle of January, which was really cold. But so I went back to pay my respects, because like my mom said, she goes, if you want to see her, now's the time to see her, because that's it. Once they take her, that's that. And so I did, and I've done that. I've seen my father's parents when they were passed and waiting for the funeral home to come get them. Went back to hospice when my grandfather had passed and saw him afterward. So it's just different. It's not like sitting there watching them suffer and go,
Yeah.
But it made it easier. Like I bawled, I cried on the way down, but once I was done with that, like I didn't cry at her funeral. I didn't cry,
I feel like there was an even exchange situation. Like, okay, I know you're leaving, I'm leaving.
Yeah.
Like, this is it.
Yeah. And you know what? And it was like, she was 97 years old. She lived her life.
Yeah.
Like how can you be upset about it? Like, that's the way I looked at it. How can you be upset by that?
You can't.
I miss her. I miss her. It's hard for me to go to my sister's house, which was her house.
Yeah.
And see how even my sister had a hard time painting the rooms, and she's like, I feel like she's turning in her grave. And I made a joke. I said, well, she can't do that because she's ashes, but that didn't fly over too well.
We still have to have a sense of
I know,
humor,
but right. And it was like, people kept asking, are you all right? Are you all right? And I snapped at my brother-in-law, and I was like, look, just because I'm crying doesn't mean that I'm not all right.
Yeah.
Like, I said, would you people stop asking me? I said, because I am. Like, I'm good with it,
It's just sad at the same time.
It is, yeah. It's a change.
Yeah.
It's a loss, but it's a change. I just don't know how, when somebody goes naturally at the age of, like, my father's father was 85, and then my two grandmothers were both in their 90s. My mother's father was 89. Like, how could you be sad at that? How do you be sad? They lived their life.
Yeah,
and
I think that's what it is for me. Like, I'm just like, but I don't know if I haven't grieved my grandmother yet, or if I really did the work and preparing for her to go my entire life, to the point where I'm just okay. Because I made sure I did little things, we had conversations, I made certain videos, as you know of. I made sure I had those things to hold on to and have those conversations to hold on to where it's okay.
Yeah.
And I know she was ready to go anyway, a long time ago.
Yeah. And it was, it was her choice. She was at that point, she was in a lot of pain. She had a hard time moving her arms and stuff. And she had, because she was aware of what's going on, she had to sign the papers saying that she was refusing treatment and that she was going to go, and she couldn't sign. So because my mom was her only surviving child, my mom had to sign as power of attorney. And at first my mom refused. She didn't want to. She's like, but then she realized that she had no choice, because this is what her mother wanted.
Yeah.
And so she did it. I can't imagine what that must have felt like. I hope that I don't ever get put in that position.
Well, I don't know what it feels like with a parent, but
No.
I know what it feels like with a sibling to be like, because my mother, and I told you everybody I left the hospital. My aunt was downstairs, checked in because she was in the hospital for a broken heart when my sister was passing. And I was upstairs in a room with my sister, with my dad, my stepmom. Nazira wasn't there because my mother and Nazira left to go check on my grandmother who was here at the house because they had been gone for hours since the middle of the night. And then it was my aunt's wife, Donna. And I really believe there was somebody else there, but I don't know who it was. And I am the one in control of the pull the plug. And when it's time, I'm like, well, how the fuck did I become this guy? Yeah. I'm like, what the hell? When did I get this power? I'm looking at my sister like, bitch. You knew I would be here. You knew I would be standing right here because I was always here. God damn.
Yep.
So I know what it's like to pull the plug on a sibling when it's time. But I don't know what it's like for my parents. But however, I guess I can put that on my resume and say I'm experienced, which is a terrible thing, but it's a part of life.
It is.
It just is what it is. So if anybody out there needs some information on pulling the plug, or you want to talk about it, hit me up. Hit me up, child. Woo! Did we cover everything?
I think so. I think there was a question that you'd ask me about my mom. You wrote down how's she doing. She's not really the type to say.
Yeah.
But it's definitely affected her. You got to catch her at the right moment.
Yeah.
And she's got to be, for her to open up. She was, like I said, she was, the last. She was all that my grandmother had after, my grandfather passed away. Because my uncle, their son, had died unexpectedly, back in 2006, which was really heartbreaking to watch them, go through that as an elderly couple. And then, so she was trying to take care of her, and my grandmother was really mean to my mother at the end. Very mean. And my mom, don't quote me, because I don't remember the exact words, but she basically said that I wish she would hurry up and die because I'm starting to resent her.
Yeah.
And again, I couldn't imagine what that would be like. As a child, trying to, resent, not having any problem. I mean, I get that people have problems with their parents all the time, and they may not talk.
Yeah.
But having someone not having a problem and being so close to your mother, and then all of a sudden, it's like, oh my God, my mom had to do everything because my grandmother her body was failing, not her mind, and it was. She couldn't write her own bills out, and my grandmother was a creature of habit. And it's Wednesday, got to write the bills out, and my mother's like, "Really?
Well, you're not able to do those things. It turns you into a different person."
Right. Friday, I had to go grocery shopping every Friday, and it was like she wanted specific things, like I want 2 chicken legs. My mother's like, what the? So I'd gone a few times with her, and we'd be in Stop and Shop, and she'd be like, "Excuse me," and the people would look at my mother like, are you kidding me? Because they had to open up a package and repackage it because my grandma, she wasted money. And you couldn't buy the full 4 package of chicken legs and separate it and then pay her back for the other half. Or nope, she didn't want that. Yep.
She knew something.
Well, I mean, my grandmother, grew up during the Depression. She was born in 23, so she would have been 99 this year. So 2024 she was born maybe. So she grew up during the Depression. Yeah. I mean, I heard her tell stories my entire life about the Depression.
But how do you feel since your sister's in the house, how do you feel she's doing?
I think she's gotten better. My sister was worried about changing things, and it's like, it's not the house, it's not the paint colors. It's do you ever hear the saying, if these walls could talk? It's not the paint colors that makes the memories.
No, it's not. My mother is in my sister's old place.
Yeah, I know. I do remember that.
So it doesn't feel weird when I go there, though.
It did, though, for you for a while.
Yeah, in the beginning. But now it's like, okay. And then I'm like, all right, gotta go. But But yeah, it's it's good. It's good to be in those spaces sometimes.
I asked my mom what it was like after my sister moved in, because that was the house she grew up in.
Yeah.
She was born in that. Well, she wasn't born in that house, but she was, you know,
She grew up in that
she grew up in that house, and she didn't really say much. And she kind of just like, I'm glad it's being lived in, is what she said. So, you know.
Yeah, it's one of those things you want to keep in the family, but you want to be close to it, but you don't want to be close to it probably. But you're happy.
Yeah, and that, so for, like, I'm glad my sister is living there.
Yeah.
You know, because, again, the memories that we had.
Do you have any questions? Anything you would like to say to the people? Any advice on grieving?
You just got to let it happen, and you got to figure out what to do for you. It's different for everybody. Don't try it. Don't tell your friends if your friends are grieving. Don't tell your friends, I know what you're going through, because no, you don't. Just be like, if there's anything you need, let me know.
Yeah.
Just be there for them. That's it. They'll come to you on their own. And that's about it. You know, just letting them know that there's somebody there for them is, you know, and just listening. I think that's what I tried to do for you, you know.
Yeah. I think we both did a really good job at listening.
Yeah.
Well, we got another podcast to do because we got to talk about some other stuff.
Anytime.
Thank you for joining My Black Self, the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
After 3 years, you finally made it.
Yeah, I know, right?
Oh, Peaches is coming. Say goodbye.
She's like, goodbye, get out.
Say goodbye to the listeners, Peach.